So this is the part B. This is part B of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, Baby Angel Geronimo editions. Part B, timed at 1350 Hrs GMT. This broadcast is taking place a few minutes before that time. So the first thing that we continue with the update on the question as to what is the draw. Why is Biden going to Ukraine? And why is there no sound or noise from the United Nations? And the second thing is about Nicola Bully, and the item in the Times today on page 5 of the Times. Well, 4 and 5 are the 2-page spread there. The item on page 5 is headed "Force Fueled." Force meaning the Lancashire Constabulary, Lancashire Police in England, is accused of fueling speculation about Nicola by failing to be honest from the start. So the police are openly being accused of having been dishonest. And there is a picture with the face, scarred face, and apparently in a hospital bed, Dan Walker. And it says that Dan Walker credits his helmet with saving his life. And there is a piece, bigger piece, Emma Thompson is saying her Oscar wins made her ill. And there is a completely dishonest heading and a very dishonest piece in the Times on page 9 saying private pension age must go up to keep older workers in jobs. So the lure and the temptation is that denying and depriving older people the benefits of pension is a good thing, corrupt to the core. And William Hague says that the Brexiteers need the deal, Northern Ireland deal, most. Now, this is the piece that we have tweeted on page 20 of the Times of Tuesday, the 21st of February, 2023. The heading is the London Metropolitan Police, that is our kind of contextual interpretational heading. The London Metropolitan Police victimized ex policewoman for racism expose. Now, that ex policewoman is a policewoman of South Asian appearance. And what's her name? She sounds like she's a Punjabi. The name is Sandhu. And she is being given the abbreviated first name Palm Sandhu. This must be an abbreviation from the Paramjit Sandhu, because she's been asked to repay the 60,000 pounds to avoid being sued by the Metropolitan Police. We shall come back to Paramjit Sandhu. So the laptop is kept on the lap, and it keeps slipping and slipping off, and it's exposed to the risk of being broken. This is part of the evidence. Part of the evidence rejecting the lies of the Newham Council. The lies perpetrated by the liar concerned in the Newham Council. And in one of the communications, the particular individual employed as a social worker by Niyam Council is told, "Dear Mr. So and so, you have persistently ignored, misstated, misrepresented right from the start of your contract with the writer. In May 2022, you clearly are still in denial. The answer to your denial question is contained in the nearly 200 emails and telephone conversations. Please stop the denial policy and read the emails and then say that the emails do not have contemporaneous, current, factual evidence of your lying, your negligence, and your misrepresentation. You, Mr. X in the Newham Council Social Services, have contradicted every single time on every single item, aspect, and need. You cannot impersonate, pretend to be a doctor, a therapist, or clinical investigator, and yet you have done that and written off the severe disabilities as non-existent, and you have brazenly, offensively asserted that the writer can climb stairs. The writer has told you that climbing requires gripping the handles, which the writer cannot safely do because of their injuries on the three right hand fingers that are crucial. You, the social worker concerned in the adult social services post, are in fantasy land. And the more you deny, the more losses of time and resources are being caused by you. This is dated, this one is dated the 5th of January 2023. There is one spelling error that we have detected in that particular communication. Let's check the actual error. One error in the spelling of the surname of the writer. Yes, dine, it should be done. D-O-N-E, not D-I-N-E. So the Matt victimized this particular South Asian ex police woman. Her name is Paramjit Sandhu. Let's see what they're saying. They're saying that she must return the 60,000 pounds that they paid her. Otherwise, they will sue her. So, reading that item in the Times on page 20 of today, 21st of February 2023, in context, that is to say, at the same time as being aware of the extensive coverage of the widespread condemnation of Lancashire police over their conduct in relation to Nicola Bully. This is Pam Sandhu, a former chief superintendent. She is not a former policewoman, she is a former chief superintendent, has been forced to start paying back half the 120,000 pounds she received in a settlement from the Metropolitan Police after it said it would otherwise sue her. She was accused of breaking an agreement not to make disparaging or derogatory comments about the Met or about Cressida Dick, the former London Metropolitan Police Commissioner. The deal was signed in 2020 when Sandhu's discrimination claim was settled before an employment tribunal hearing. A year later, she alleged in her book, Black and Blue, that for 30 years she had endured regular episodes of discrimination in an institutionally racist organization. She wrote that the incidents range from low-level sexual and racial abuse to attempts to thwart promotion and drive her from the service. And then she says that to avoid the Met applying for a last-minute court injunction to prevent the book's publication, Sandhu had agreed to return 60,000 pounds to the force. However, it emerged last year that Sandhu had refused to pay the money and the Met began legal action against her. Faced with the prospect of costly court proceedings, Sandhu has now started to pay the sum in installments. She said she had been victimized for being a whistleblower. I lost 60,000 pounds for the privilege of speaking out, and if I could get it back, I would, but I don't regret writing the book. Lawrence Davies, her lawyer, said it should be illegal to insert confidentiality clauses or non-disclosure agreements into tribunal settlements. The public has a right to know about racism and sexism in the Metropolitan Police, he said. Scotland Yard, that is, Metropolitan Police is called Scotland Yard for a strange reason, said an agreement was reached with Miss Sandhu to settle an employment tribunal claim. To be clear, the Metropolitan Police has made no admissions of liability. in respect of the allegations made. The agreement was signed voluntarily by Ms. Sandhu, and part of that agreement was a clause against publication of derogatory statements. Statements are only reached when, sorry, I'll read that again, not statement, it's settlement. Settlements are only reached when both parties agree and have opportunity to obtain independent legal advice on the terms. In those circumstances where a confidentiality clause is included in a settlement, this is a decision that will have been reached following agreement between both parties. We keep the use of such clauses under review. Due to a subsequent breach of that clause, the Metropolitan Police took steps to recover funds owed to them by a civil claim. That claim has since been settled. Now, there is another policeman in the news, which is a Metropolitan Police officer raped a woman hours after showing her his warrant card in a nightclub, a court was told yesterday. Stephen Kyer, 57, from Ashford, Kent, is said to have ignored her pleas to stop during the incident. At her home in 2004, the woman, aged 23 at the time, reported the alleged attack in April that year, and a DNA profile was later obtained from a duvet. However, no match was found on the national database, and the investigation was abruptly closed 2 years later. In 2018, the woman wrote to Cressida Dick, then Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, to express the injustice she felt and urged the police to reopen the case. The original 999 call and CCTV footage had been lost. Notice that statement. The original 999 call and CCTV footage had been lost. But investigators recovered stills taken from the video. Jurors at the Old Bailey in London were told how these showed a man of similar appearance was at Oceania nightclub in Kingston upon Thames, London, on the night in question. Carey, who has since retired, denies rape and indecent assault. The trial continues. Now, read that thing again about the loss of the CCTV and 999 call. Now, if that happens, now what's the point of having CCTV? What's the point of making calls? 999 calls. And this goes on. This completely goes on. Policing does not exist. So we'll go back to the story of Lancashire police being dishonest from the start of their involvement about Nicola Bulley. Okay, so this is the piece that William Hague, who was a leader of the Conservatives, is now in the House of Peers and a columnist in the Times. Now let's and So this is the piece about Biden. There are three editorials, otherwise known as leading articles in the Times today. The first one is Biden in Kiev or Kiev, and the second one is the Environment Agency is failing to prevent farmers from poisoning rivers. And about the cinema, a masterly portrayal of war shows how subtitles can change films for the better. And there is on the birthdays today, Vanessa Felt, picture chat show host, 61. Well, she may be 61, but she has been kind of pursuing her claim against her so-called, was it husband or boyfriend, who is like 30 years younger than her. And Hugo Rifkind is saying in the piece that Scottish Labour must wave the Union flag. Now, what on earth is going on? The Times is behaving like it's a supporter of the Labour Party. And Melanie Phillips' piece today is headed blame social media for rise of trauma voyeurs. Now, this is about Nicola Bully and the Gauls posting conspiracies about Nicola Bully. And it is a piece totally condemning all these girls posting conspiracy theories against, well, about Bully and about members of our family. That is the line that is being promoted in the media coverage today, Tuesday, the 21st of February 2023. Now, in the piece, William Hague's piece, it's the Brexit crowd who need this deal most. He says agreement over Northern Ireland offers the pragmatic relationship with Brussels promised by the Leave campaign. The moment you had a new prime minister, the prospects for a deal on Northern Ireland improved sharply. I was told a few weeks ago by a well-placed European diplomat. This may not sound surprising. European Union leaders had long since concluded that no deal could be done with Boris Johnson because they did not trust him. He was on his way out and he had signed up to the arrangements but he then decided the arrangements were unacceptable. What might surprise some people is that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, the diplomat was referred to, was not Rishi Sunak, but Liz Truss. A serious push from London to resolve the problems with the vexed protocol began in early September. Chris Heaton Harris, a prominent Brexiteer, became Northern Ireland Secretary and immediately set out to create a better atmosphere in relation with Dublin. At the same time, James Cleverly, another Brexiteer, became Foreign Secretary and patiently began the work now bearing fruit of building trust and working relations with the European Commission. Both these ministers kept their positions when Truss was replaced by Sunak, and their efforts continued, reciprocated by Brussels and the EU capitals. I point this out because it illustrates that the great majority of conservatives, including some hardline pro Brexit figures, as well as the other main political parties, have judged it right to make a serious push to seal a deal. And any prime minister, and not hopelessly entangled in adopting a treaty and then rejecting it, would make a serious effort to do so. Of course, it has to be a deal that sorts out genuine grievances. It is not right or necessary for the European Union to be busying itself restricting or complicating the flow of goods between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Many of the objections of the Democratic Unionist Party (DUP) are entirely legitimate. But if this set of ministers concludes in the coming days they have achieved the best outcome attainable, that should carry great weight. No alternative strategy of bluster, threat, and intransigence is likely to prove more successful. Most people in Britain tell pollsters they now think Brexit was a mistake. That does not mean they all want to refight the referendum, although that could change in 4 or 5 years if we do not seem to be prospering as we should be. It's a fair assumption that most voters want neither a Remainer plot nor a Brexit purity. They desire a sensible, pragmatic, cooperative relationship with our neighbors. That is what they were promised in the referendum and why they voted to get Brexit done at the last election. They want to move on. And this is the line that is being kind of advanced right across the mainstream media today. And we shall talk about Brexit in the context of the wider issues. Now, let's take a look at the other items. We shall be talking about Shamima Begum. Let's check the evidence on the updater front. What are they saying about Shamima Begum? Well, the immigration court is due to rule on Shamima Begum British citizenship case tomorrow. An immigration court in London will rule this week on whether Shamima Begum, who fled Britain to join the Islamic State group in Syria. Well, she didn't flee Britain. Let's check. Now, the Donald Trump supporter and die-hard anti-Muslim outlet called Breitbart is running a wildly typical racist incitement of hatred against Shamima Begum, not because she's a terrorist suspect, but she's a Muslim. British media, including the publicly funded BBC and the Times, has come under fire for the portrayal of former ISIS bride Shamima Begum as a victim. Well, she's now being called former ISIS bride. So I haven't noticed when this end of her marriage to this rapist was kind of noted as having occurred. Now, this is the Scotsman, and there is a column by somebody called Dr. Paul Arnell. Human Rights Act. Winston Churchill's words should shame UK government over its treatment of refugees and people like Shamima Begum. Now, this is a so this is the piece that I have heard for the first time. This is the first time I've heard Shamima Begum's voice, and this is a breath. And that is the voice of, what's her name? Nicola Sturgeon. And Nicola Sturgeon has got, after she imitated the style of Jacinda Ardern and staged a kind of resignation, Nicola Sturgeon seems to have got quite a number of people in the so-called media in Britain who think she's a force for the good, and included among those is, of course, Ian Dunt. I mean, Dunt actually rhymes with the C word. Now, these are people that are actually devoid. These people are devoid of morality, honesty. And despite the fact that they are in the media, they're talking about the Lancashire police having behaved wrongly against Nicola Bulley and Nicola Bulley's image and Nicola Bulley's family. Generally, the media is stuffed with people who don't practice morality or ethics as defined universally and objectively. And I say this because of the uniformity in the opinions expressed under the bogus cover of Sky Press Preview. I mean, there is nothing moral about the Sky News slotting Harry Cole, the so-called political editor of the Murdoch's scum, and the so-called political editor of the Guardian, Creera, Pipa Creera, or Creer, because they really don't express truthful moral opinion at all. And every single day, the Sky News, and there are counterparts on the BBC News, keep slotting people like that to supposedly do a preview or analysis of the newspaper headlines. But they don't analyze, they really don't. There is a predicted, kind of expected amount of bogus kind of skepticism, say that is paraded with the appearance of Christina Peterson. Is it Christina Peterson? No, it's Patterson. Christina Patterson, Rachel Shabi, and this really corrupt Sonia Soda on the Observer or the Guardian. Now, probably she has transferred herself into the Guardian. These are bogus sources of skepticism. None of these slottees, in the years that they have been in places on parade, has really broken anything. That is to say, hasn't made a mold-breaking comment. And my definition of mold-breaking comment is a comment that actually exposes the lies of the media, the lying through the media. And we go back to the behavior of the police in Lancashire in neglecting Nicola Bulley herself. If it is true that the police were called to Nicola Bulley's house weeks or days before her disappearance, then the most important question that must be answered is this: why was she allowed to disappear? Why wasn't help provided to her? Because by definition, if the police were called to her address, then that call must have been preceded by something that happened that warranted the police being called. amongst other things, to prevent a serious incident happening to one or more individuals at that address. And if it was the case, which has been circulated too late, that Nicola Bully had stopped taking her medication or stopped taking some of her medication, which was then connected with her losing her focus, etc., etc., then that fact makes it even more urgent that Nicola Bully should have been given help, urgently helped by being given the medication, by being carefully cared for and helped in getting her medication. That didn't happen. So, who decided not to help her? When help and solidarity and support were the most important things she needed, and things that, if provided, would have helped her instead of her being found as having or listed as having disappeared. And as I said, the lack of action by the social services and Newham Council, who decided to cut off connections with Lillian John Baptiste in Canning Town, the loss of contact with the Woking in Surrey social services, with Laura Wynnum. These are similar incidents, similar type of behavior by the agencies. The agencies that are funded at considerable public expense, considerable public cost to help people, vulnerable people like Nicola, like Laura, like Lillian John Baptiste. All of them are now known to have been neglected by the very agencies, the very personnel, the very social work employees, the mental health employees, and then the police, who all have neglected her at the most crucial times, that the last thing they should have done is to neglect her. They should have provided help helpfully, carefully, and caringly. And they didn't do that. They didn't do any of that. And this two-page spread on the pages 4 and 5 of the Times today, Tuesday, the 21st of February 2023, reads, demands for inquiry as Bully family's worst fears confirmed. And the forced fear speculation by failing to be honest from the start. And there is a spiritual medium who said that is said to have made the discovery and identified the location where Nicola Bully's body was found. It's called Jason Rothwell, who is pictured and who is reportedly the person who identified the location. And this is as I said in the last two editions, this is going to be the story for a very long time to come, if not forever. Because she had, they said, the family said, and anyone watching the various images of Nicola Bully during the 3 weeks that she has been in the news, her images have been in the news. Anyone looking at her images would need no encouragement before concluding that she looks a competent, very well organized, very well turned out individual. That is it, at odds, seriously at odds with the statement which I cannot say without feeling overcome with outrage. I mean, how did this individual, she doesn't look in any way a part of the discovery. She was employed as a mortgage advisor. I mean, a mortgage advisor. She wasn't not working, let's say. I mean, it doesn't. And one of our friends, one of the people that came out and spoke about her, and she spoke to film on film, on a video, said that she was the most considerate, conscientious, caring individual. All of that is absolutely true. Looking at any of the images. So something is still not right. That is to say, despite the fact that they're saying that her body has been found, etc., it still doesn't make sense. What happened? Something happened and it is not being yet made public. Well, I cannot see this being made public. And the Sun on pages 4 and 5 has also a 2-page spread. And the picture of her with Paul, her partner, they say. This picture must have been taken of the pair outside a club or some sort of similar place. She looks absolutely as if she's enjoying being in that picture. So either they were going to a party or something. This is inexplicable. Then the Sun uses the word bungles. The Suella Braverman lets repeat the cops, that is the police. Now, bungling Nicola Bully cops got a public dressing down from the Home Secretary yesterday. Now that whole sentence is stupid. It's not a public dressing down. What they're doing is promoting Suella Braverman as if she is making a difference. She's not. She's exploiting the events around Nicola Bully for promoting her own image, that is Suella Braverman's image. So this is absolutely, it's not heartbreak. There is simply no word. There is no word that actually can begin to sum up the emotions. I mean, she doesn't look as lost. She doesn't look as if she has got any problem at all. So, what was the call about? What was the call to the police about? What was the visit about? That has to be explained. Now, there is a piece in the Financial Times on the penultimate page. The Financial Times today, Tuesday, 21st of February 2023, has got 22 pages. The main 22 pages. Let's see. Well, where I'm sitting, I can't check the rest of the newspaper piles. So I don't know whether this is the sum total of the pages that this Financial Times contains today. Financial Times, the weekdays, the cover price is UK £3.50. So on the front page, the lead story, of course, is about Joe Biden vowing unwavering support for Ukraine on surprise visit to Kiev. And the second piece is about the Oxford University doing a deal with drug dealers, opioid drug dealers, and causing deaths. And we shall come to those in due course. But let's go back to the piece about the bank. The piece about the banks, in an opinion piece by Brooke Masters, reads Epstein's long shadow falls on JP Morgan and Barclays. Now, this is a very serious issue. Second only to the seriousness of the impact on society of police and the judiciary being exposed as dysfunctional is the role of the banks, the financial institutions behaving in corrupt and dysfunctional ways. So, this is the piece by Brooke Masters under the heading of business. Brooke is a woman, although her picture is quite uncertain. The image doesn't make her look like either gender. So there is a highlighted bit in the middle of the article. People are innocent until proven guilty, but demands for irrefutable proof can be cover for willful blindness. Now, the name Epstein is, of course, the Epstein, the trafficker of girls. Well, he's a pimp. He is a pimp, and Ghislaine Maxwell was a pimp. And he was the main pimp who exploited Ghislaine Maxwell as well. When does giving someone the benefit of the doubt cross the line into sticking your head in the sand? The leaders of the JP Morgan, Chase, And Barclays need to answer that question in light of newly public allegations about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and their former colleague Jess Staley. Epstein, a JP Morgan client for more than a decade, died in 2019 while awaiting trial on additional charges of abusing young women and girls. But connections to him still cast a long shadow over individuals ranging from tech giants to royalty. Staley, who served at times as the US bank's point person with Epstein, lost his job as Barclays chief executive in 2021 when he opted to fight a preliminary finding from the UK regulator that he had been misleading about their relationship. Their meaning Staley and Epstein. Last week, both banks were dragged further into the scandal. Now, notice this word dragged. That is a corrupt use of the word dragged because that gives the benefit of the doubt to the ones that don't deserve any benefit whatsoever. And it shows that they are innocent otherwise because they are only guilty because they've been dragged. Well, they would not have been dragged if they weren't at the scene of the crime to begin with. So the word dragged is a voluntary capitulation by Brookmasters or by the Financial Times to these offenders, wrongdoers, members of the gang of pimps and traffickers and rapists. Because the allegation against the second son of the late Brenda, the Queen of England, is that he is a rapist, that he raped the teenage girl, repeatedly raped her, and then the rapes were facilitated by Epstein and Maxwell. So let's read this bit again. It says that last week both banks were dragged, and as I have explained, dragged is not the word. I would use the word exposed further, not dragged. So Brooke Masters is herself exposed as covering up for these criminals. Last week, both banks were exposed further into the scandal when US Virgin Island authorities made public some of Staley's and Epstein's emails as part of a lawsuit alleging that JP Morgan facilitated sex trafficking at Epstein's island compound. The US bank calls the lawsuit, that is the US bank meaning the JP Morgan, meritless. And Staley, who is not a defendant, has repeatedly denied that he was aware of Epstein's misbehavior. And Brooke Masters opportunistically, or the Financial Times editorial team opportunistically and corruptly, uses these four words Barclays declined to comment. Fuck the Financial Times. Why not give the details as to how many times Barclays was contacted about this and what was actually put to them as fact-based question? The next paragraph reads, the lawsuit alleges Staley used his work email to exchange 1,200 emails with Epstein. Now that's a lot of emails. And received what the lawsuit describes as photos of young women in seductive poses from him. So these are pimps. It alleges Epstein used JP Morgan accounts to pay more than 1 million to at least 20 victims of sexual crime. In 2009, Staley wrote to Epstein of their profound friendship and heartfelt hug. One pimp hugging another pimp. A year later, he emailed, say hi to Snow White. When Epstein responded, what character would you like next? Staley replied, Beauty and the Beast. So these are, let's say, the pimp Epstein and the client Staley. In the lawsuit, JP Morgan's alleged reaction to mounting evidence of Epstein's misdeeds comes across as almost blasé. Absolutely. After his guilty plea in 2008, an employee speculated his $120 million assets would leave the bank pending the chief executive officer Jamie Dimon review. Yet the disgraced financier stayed a client. JP Morgan said last week, we have not seen any evidence of such a review. If Diamond didn't review it, who did? Did anyone? The lawsuit says when the bank later decided to ask Epstein directly about trafficking claims, they sent Staley. In 2010, another email asked, see below new allegations. Are you still comfortable with this client who is now a registered sex offender? The response, these stories pop up. When the head of anti-money laundering requested formal approval of Epstein as a client in 2011, someone else wrote back, I thought we did that in approving a $50 million new line of credit last month. So they're talking about Epstein, aren't they? JP Morgan can certainly argue that convicted felons are entitled to bank accounts. Fantastic. Convicted felons are entitled to bank accounts, but innocent people aren't. And our campaign knows of hundreds of cases of innocent people being denied banking service. Now, this is on page 21 of the Financial Times of Tuesday, the 21st of February 2023. Now, this is something that is absolutely crucial to the behavior of Rukhsana Fiaz and the corrupt employees in the social service, especially the particular one situated at the adult social services section of the social services. So let's continue from that bit that convicted felons are entitled to bank accounts, and the bank cannot be expected to pay close attention to every email and transaction involving a free spending mogul. The bank also closed Epstein's account in 2013, shortly after Staley departed and before Epstein became a target of worldwide outrage. Barclays never banked Epstein, but its board faces tough questions about their choices in 2020 after he was re-arrested. This Staley. Is it Staley or Epstein they're talking about re-arrested? When did Epstein die? At that time, the now public JP Morgan emails landed in the lap of UK regulators, who launched a probe into whether Staley had misled them about the nature of the Epstein relationship. Yet Barclays board insisted that Staley had their full confidence and stuck by him for nearly another year. People familiar with the process say the board based the decision on their own investigation. It included the emails, but not the attachments with the allegedly seductive pictures of the children. They also took Staley's history of dogged loyalty and repeated denials that he knew anything about sexual misbehavior into account. People are innocent until proven guilty, and felons who have served their time deserve second chances. But demands for incontrovertible proof can be cover for willful blindness. When those involved are wealthy and connected to a network of powerful individuals, the pressure goes only one way. JP Morgan has formed on ignoring inconvenient facts. I'll read that again. JP Morgan has formed on ignoring inconvenient facts. In 2014, it paid $2.6 billion to end a criminal probe into allegations that JP Morgan turned a blind eye to Bernard, Bernard Madoff. Sorry, read that again. This is the name that should be read correctly. In 2014, JP Morgan paid $2.6 billion to end a criminal investigation into allegations that JP Morgan turned a blind eye to Barney Madoff's enormous Ponzi scheme. Barclays had a history of going easy on Staley when he pushed legal and ethical boundaries. The board of previously the board previously stood by him when he tried twice to uncover the identity of an anonymous whistleblower and was fined 642,430 pounds overdraft. Hindsight is always 2020. But it is fair to ask whether JP Morgan's interest in keeping Epstein's business and the Barclays board's faith in Staley have ended have ended up damaging both institutions and may continue to do so. Now this piece by Brooke Masters is so iffy, but it still can't conceal the fact that the banks are corrupt, that they're prostitutes, they're pimps, and they're madams. In today's I newspaper, the main front page says Nicola Bully's family accused shameful television crews and social media. Worst fears are realized after police confirm her body has been found near the riverbank where she went missing during a dog walk 25 days ago. What is? Her family accused broadcasters of intruding their grief. Sky News and ITV made contact with us directly when we had expressly asked for privacy. They criticized members of the public who have used social media to falsely accuse Nicola of wrongdoing. It's sad we will have to explain to our girls. This is absolutely appalling. They claim that some press misquoted and vilified friends and family. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook face backlash over conspiracy theories. And there is this fucking corrupt, typical corrupt heading in the fucking I newspaper. This is a fucking corrupt and stupid and dishonest form. Johnson not trying to undermine Sunak's Brexit deal. Allies insist. What fucking allies, you fucking liars? What allies? It's the fucking lying evilness himself. It's fucking shit. Allies. Fuck them. And the eye has got a piece about Paramji Sandhu as well. Sandhu being victimized by the Metropolitan Police. And there is on page 14 of the Eye, there is this piece about child poverty. And it's a piece written by Paul Waugh. And it says the Paul Waugh is the Eye's chief political commentator. And this is the heading. Ministers need to wake up to the country's child poverty crisis. Now, what does it mean? Does it mean that children have got separate entities and separately exist separate from their parents and adults? Because child poverty is an intentional dishonest disguise to cover up, to deny, to hide, to conceal adult poverty as well. So I'll put that there, and the details I shall go into another time. Next to it is the piece about Scotland, and the group picture is one by the SNP's kind of dubious Muslim kind of cabinet member of the SNP government called Humza. And it says, I'm with Humza. Humza for Scotland. And there is a line underlying that the front runner, who is a woman called Forbes, is unlikely to succeed because of the well chronicled profile of her as a person who opposes gay marriage, etc., etc. Now, there is a piece on Cambodia on page 17, which says, centuries old jewels returned by a state of British smuggler. Can you believe this? The leaders of the civilization of the world are thieves. A collection of centuries old Cambodian jewelry has been returned to the country after being retrieved from the collection of a British antiquity smuggler. Cambodia's Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts announced yesterday that 77 pieces of Cambodian jewelry were retrieved from the family of Douglas Latchford, who was accused of buying and selling looted artifacts. The collection of gold and jewel encrusted pieces returned to Cambodia included a crown that appears to date to the 7th century. Many of the items can be matched to stone carvings in the walls of the famous Angkor Wat Temple, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Angkor was a powerful kingdom in the area of present-day Cambodia between the 9th and the 15th centuries. The return of the items followed a September 2020 agreement with Mr. Latchford's family, under which all Cambodian artifacts in their possession would be returned. Other stone and bronze artifacts were returned in September 2021. Mr. Latchford died in August 2020, aged 88 in Bangkok, Thailand, where he had lived for decades. In November 2018, US federal prosecutors indicted him on charges of wire fraud, conspiracy, and other crimes related to alleged trafficking in stolen and looted Cambodian antiquities. They accused him of creating false provenance and said he falsified invoices and shipping documents to conceal their origins. Now, this is not the complete story. I'm leaving there and moving on to Neom Council. And the behavior of Neom Council in allowing the theft of intellectual properties, the removal of intellectual properties, and the hiding of intellectual properties from an address in Neom during the period, let's say, March 2022 and May 2022. The replacement value can only be stated as a replacement value, but the real stolen items can never be found. I mean, this piece about the Cambodian artifacts shows the involvement of governments, and still it is not clear that all the items have been restored and replaced and retrieved and kind of returned to Cambodia. So the value of the intellectual properties, the hard drives that have been concealed from the address in Newham, plus the 7 to 10 laptops, they exceed in value anything that has been found in Cambodian return, found about of the Cambodian items. Because if the value of one hard drive is more than 109 million pounds, then multiply that by the number of the hard drives and the equivalents that have been stolen, concealed, and hidden, facilitated by the wrongful behavior, the corrupt behavior, the uncaring behavior, the negligent behavior of the Neom Council social service personnel. So we shall be talking about all of those in context and in updates. And we're ending this one as 15:20 hours GMT, the length being 1 hour 34 minutes and 56 seconds.